narratives because we are able to tell a story. And I think that it's important that the IRS kind of sees what you're wanting to do as a story. So anyways, then we go back here. Oops, wait a minute. Oops, I'm sorry y'all. I'm like trying to figure out, okay, hold on. There we go. All right, so we've got the identification of the applicant. This is all the information. It'll be your information because you're the primary contact person. And then you just have to go, you've got a website. They like to see websites, by the way, FYI. Obviously, we had a website up because we're a news organization, so it'd be kind of foolish of me to apply to the IRS as a news organization and then not have a news site. But they like to see that, okay, there's something on the internet about this. So it's really good if you have something that you can show them, direct them to a site that has information about what your goals, what you're doing. So they can kind of get a sense of, okay, this person's already out there telling people that, you know, this is what the type of filmmaking I want to do, this is what I'm passionate about, and, you know, we want to help people across the world through our, you know, through our narrative stories in film. I mean, however you want to position that for yourself. But it's important to be able to show the IRS something like that. Then you go in and you basically have to tell them the organizational structure. Typically here in Texas, if you filled out that form, you're a corporation. Okay, so you're filling out the form in Texas as a corporation, so you would be a corporation then. Okay, so then you've got, you know, the provisions. You have to kind of just read through all of this stuff. It's a bit, sometimes you have to read it. I had to read it several times, quite frankly, to figure out some of the things that it was asking me to do. But then you get down here to your narrative description of your activities. And one of the things, let's see, what did I put down for mine? I had, basically, at the time that I decided to do this, there weren't too many, and there still aren't actually, too many nonprofit news organizations organized as nonprofits. I think that it is a trend that is going to continue though, especially since news organizations, education, civic participation, engagement, that sort of thing, that all good news organizations should encourage for the continuation of our democracy. That I think with that we will see more news organizations organized as nonprofits. But for right now there's not too many of us out there. But one of the things that I had to do was to tell my story to them and why this particular generation would even warrant a news site, much less a nonprofit one. So I started out by saying that YGN Out Loud was formed for exclusively charitable and educational purposes, and then I go into specifically what we are. And then you have to provide background. In my case, it was during the 2008 election cycle. Millions of young voters were actively engaged in the electoral process. And then I went in to explain how they actually came out to vote in 2008, which they actually did. I mean, it's not just an urban myth that young people came out to vote. They actually did. As a matter of fact, in 2008, they came out to vote at a rate higher or second only to the election in 1972. And the election in 1972 was actually the first time that 18-year-olds could even vote. So they were second to that election. So they absolutely came out to vote in 2008. But these are the types of background information that you're going to want to share. What is it about your filmmaking that you will provide information, you will educate people about a certain cause, about a certain issue that is being underrepresented right now, or certain issues that would be underrepresented. You know, you have to back it up with facts. You know, it's basically writing a proposal, quite frankly. It would be like writing a funding proposal that you can take if you've tried to write proposals for any sort of filmmaking to try and get some investors, it's very similar to that. So you put together the narrative that basically explains why this is a really good idea that you are granted the nonprofit status. Then you have to come in and you fill out the compensation and other financial arrangements with all of these people. They want to make sure that you're not going to have, like, all of your board members aren't going to get rich off of this. Okay, they just want to make absolute sure that you are taking the nonprofit status to heart, and that you're not compensating your board members for unreasonable travel or anything just like crazy kind of stuff. And you also have to list out your board members, actually, right there too. Now you have to put down everybody that's going to get more than $50,000 a year. And this is kind of hard because when you're filling out this form at the beginning, I mean, especially if you're filling it out and you don't really, like when I filled it out, it's not like we had money. We didn't have any money. And so it was hard for me to kind of sometimes think about, okay, who would be making over 50,000? Well, I mean, in our case, there's nobody going to be making over 50,000. But you really have to think about it for the future, just because they're going to want to know if there's a possibility that somebody might be making 50,000, you need to slap their name down here. Especially if and then they want to know about your independent contractors, what kind of dollars they're making. They want to know that your trustees, your board, that you're not having, like, there's not relationships. They want to know what all the relationships are. For instance, one of the people on my board is my sister. But it wasn't just because she was my sister. She actually was an anchor. She was a morning news anchor for several years in stations basically all across the country. And she ended up in a station, the CBS affiliate at Hartford, Connecticut. And so she actually has a broadcast background. And so that was a legitimate person to put on a news site. Okay? My mom, she was like, well, can't I be on your board? I'm like, Mom, how am I can't justify you being, I mean, I love my mom, but I can't justify her being on the board. She doesn't have any, nonprofit experience or working with, college kids or, with our target audience or media background. So I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't put you on the board, But so you have to be aware of who's on the board, but then I had to explain to the IRS why my sister could be on the board. Now luckily the IRS said okay. But I couldn't just slap her on if she didn't have the background to be able to be on there.